Hey guys, welcome to Seeking God in the Wait. This is the third part of how we got to know each other. We met each other online, which is a lot of hesitations on our part, but for some reason God seemed to have used it, and it was pretty awesome. So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about what that looked like, because we had initiated conversation. We had been talking for a while. 7 days in, as you mentioned last time, I wasn't going to mess around. I wanted to know, is this person for real? Is she real?
Right.
Is she a real person?
He thought I was fake. I thought he was lying because all of his answers seemed too good.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about how that looked when we actually were communicating and what that led into?
Yeah. So we were writing each other, mostly over Messenger.
That's how you got my real name.
Right. And a couple of days into it, he's like, hey, could we talk FaceTime? And I was like, sure. Never had anyone ask me that quickly, but we can do that, sure. So we did. A week after we had initially started writing, we had FaceTimed, and I was so nervous. Oh my gosh, I was so nervous. And the other thing that flew into that whole scenario was I had a time change and he didn't. I was out in Germany, living in Germany, and he was in California. And so this time change totally messed it up because I thought I still had another hour and I didn't. And he's like, hey, I'm ready. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not ready. I was on the road going home from church.
And this is our first.
This is our first meeting up. And he's like, I think there was a time change. So we finally got to talk. And it's that initial meeting of behind a screen of typing, you have a few moments to respond. It's not that face-to-face real-time interaction. So it was an interesting thing meeting someone, even if it's just through video for the first time.
Yeah, you can't hide behind, you can hide behind text, when you're talking.
Right, but not so much when you're videoing.
Right.
So it was a very exciting, kind of nerve-wracking moment because it could be totally weird and awkward and you'd be like, I just want to get off the phone and don't want to ever see this person again. Or it could be really good. So we started talking, and I remember you had your beanie on, you were outside. It was early in the morning there and afternoon in Germany. And it just was so easy. It just flowed, conversation flowed. And it was as if we had known each other for a while. And the cool thing was we had already touched on a few topics in our writing. So we knew what, there was a few things we could talk about. So we talked for a good 2 hours. And next to the room where I was in, my roommate was in the next room, and she was nervously praying for me and just rooting for me and supporting me emotionally in this whole thing. So it was fun and funny.
Did she say, hey, this is the year of love?
The year of love. This is your conscience. So that was good. It was good to establish that I'm real. And for me, it was good to establish that he's not this awkward, weird person. But, we could hold a 2-hour conversation with pretty much a stranger halfway across the world.
It was pretty amazing how much we clicked and how easy it was.
How quickly,
Yeah. And from that point, for me, what it was is I really wanted to just get to know her for who he was or who she was. So I don't know. For me, I really wanted to just nail her with question after question after question. I didn't want to hold back anything because I didn't want to be surprised by anything. I wanted to get to know her for who she really was, the true Johanna, and not somebody that was fake. Again, maybe that was from all the catfishes and all the women. A little traumatized.
But it was good. And he said that. It was in a fun, sweet, joking way. It wasn't like an interrogation interview way. But he said, I just...
Kind of like the way your German family interrogated me when they were getting to know me. Love you guys.
It was this I have a million questions for you. I want to get to know you, and we need to see if this works. We need to see how many I think you kind of made a game out of it, and you're we're collecting points. How many points are in favor for this relationship and for this being something that we're going to walk into. So with every question, he's like, 1 more point for us, and it was fun and it was cute, and it was, but it was very raw and very honest. And I think what I appreciated about you, and he very much led in this sense, he just was like, here are my cards. This is who I am, playing with an open deck and not with, oh, I'm great. Everything's great. And praise the Lord all the time. And, it was very like, this is who I am.
And
yeah.
I mean, the older you get, the more you start to realize like what's in a real relationship and how that looks. And, you start to see marriages and what works and what doesn't. And I think for me, I saw so many people that were like fake up front. And then when the people would get to know each other for who they really were, there was so much tension and divorce or
disappointment.
Disappointment.
Also, yeah.
So I didn't want her to see me for somebody who I'm not. So I'd have to fake like I'm like that person for the rest of my life, which is impossible.
Yeah.
And I wanted to see her for who she was. Yeah. And so for me, that's what those questions were all about. Like, who is she, right? And what would she do in this situation, or what has she done in these situations? And that was one way to really kind of get to know her for who she was.
Yeah. And even though long distance, I mean, like I said, we couldn't just meet up, the next week or something. We spent, day in, day out writing each other. And it was kind of frustrating that we couldn't just meet up, because the more we got to know each other, the more we wanted to meet up. But because that just wasn't possible, we spent a lot of time, asking really honest, raw questions, the fun ones, the easy ones, the hard ones, the confrontational ones. Like we asked each other about past relationships. We asked each other about, like, what's your idea of marriage? What does that look like to you? What is like a no-go, just all those things. Yeah. What are the things that we struggle with? What are things, that we asked each other about our past and where we want to go in the future. So we laid a really solid foundation.
Pretty much everything out there.
Yeah. In our getting to know each other long distance.
Yeah. And I wanted to know if she can actually love me for who I was. So that was one big thing with her is one thing that she's said to me in the past is like how open I was, like how, like I was straight up with her, like my struggles, the things that I deal with, everything that I was battling. And just to know that she was, don't want to say okay with them, but just to know like, she saw that accepting accepting. Like she could still love me through my the reality of my life.
Yeah, with everything that we come with, right? Yeah.
Because I mean, in marriage, that's what it's all about, right? It's you come with baggage. You got two imperfect people that are coming together to try to make it work with Christ as the center, and that stuff is real. And if it's not addressed before marriage, then you bring it into marriage. So. She had to know what she was getting herself into. And again,
we both did.
Yeah.
And I mean, I would encourage you guys, when you are dating, when you're getting to know people, even if you don't know that this is the right person, obviously there's a certain degree of, not wanting to be like, oh my gosh, here I am, spilling your entire heart and everything inside of you.
Copy wisdom.
But as as you're feeling more confident in opening up and sharing, be as open as you can that is appropriate for that stage of getting to know each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that has benefited us, especially going into marriage, because it's now we know that we can trust each other. Yeah. And it's built trust instead of like hiding all these secrets and stuff.
Yeah, revealing like even difficult things didn't make us shy away from, you're not as great as I thought you were, but it built up this trust of like, you trust me with something that's hard and that's making you vulnerable. And going into marriage, we went in with a really strong foundation of trust and of like accepting each other.
And that's super beneficial, I think. Yeah. So what we want to do is we're going to go into the next episode, and we're going to talk a little bit about like, well, what was the next steps? I mean, she's living in Germany, I'm living in California. That's thousands of miles. Well, that's a long plane ride. It's, 14-hour plane ride.
Right.
So how do you make it work? Like, is this just going to be a fun thing that we're going to spend time and be my internet fling, or
3 years later?
3 years later, or do we make it happen? Because both of us had the intention of getting married, but how would we make that work? So that's what we're going to talk about next episode. I hope you guys were inspired and encouraged by kind of the getting to know each other's phase, and hopefully you guys were able to take away some things, because for us, it's pretty awesome how those questions benefited us to get to know each other more on a personal level, a deeper level that was going to build into what was to come.
Yeah.
So thank you guys. And if you guys have any questions or comments, we do have that below. And we just want a little interaction with you guys. We know there's a lot of struggles out there. There's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
And you guys have some great stories too. You
Yeah.
know, God's not just working in our lives, but
Right.
also in your lives. So
Right.
we would love to hear from you guys.
Yeah.
So feel free to add that below.
Yeah.
Love you guys, and we'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye. Comment below.
Click on the subscribe button.
Subscribe
Give me
button
a like.
below. Thumbs up.
Woohoo!